Wanted to welcome you to our first ever Product Careers virtual event, Building Breakthrough Products on the Blockchain. My name is Jonna Mackey. I'm the Talent Attraction Manager here at Paxos. And today you are going to hear more about Paxos's mission, our vision of our platform, blockchain infrastructure services we offer, and most importantly, the people behind those products and what we look for when hiring product managers. So with that, there's probably nobody better I can think of to start this off and talk about Paxos than Paxos CEO and co-founder Charles Cascarilla. Charles, take it over.
Thanks a lot, Jonna. Thanks everyone for joining. It's exciting to have a chance to talk to you about Paxos, and hopefully you can understand by the end of this why we're all excited to be here at Paxos. So I'll tell you a little bit about why we started Paxos, and then a little bit about product here, and then you can hear from the team. So we started Paxos a little bit after the financial crisis, and I came across Bitcoin in the very early days when it was just at 3 or 4 cents. And I was immediately interested in it because of my background as an investor in financial services companies and having worked in a number of financial services companies. And what I recognized in the crisis is that the plumbing of the system both exacerbated the crisis and hindered the recovery. And so when I saw this technology, I immediately thought that there was a chance here to rewire and replumb the system in a way that could allow the financial system to work at the speed of the internet. And by the way, that problem is just as true now as it was then. You're still running on COBOL mainframes, and the financial system is operating much closer to the speed of the post office than it is to the internet, even though the entire financial system is digital. So it's actually quite a paradox between the slowness of the system against the speed of how those assets and information should actually work. And I think that Bitcoin was interesting not just as an asset, but because of this underlying technology of blockchain. And what it allows to happen is a financial system that now, instead of being a closed private network, can be an open public network that anyone can have access to, that any asset can be on, to be programmable, to send to anyone anywhere else in the world, and to do this 24/7. And that is a complete shift. And it's one that feels pretty obvious today. And frankly, it even feels in some ways obvious 10 years ago. But it's not the way the world works now. And at Paxos, we've decided to try and tackle this problem of addressing financial infrastructure in a very specific and I think very unique way. And so I think the first thing that we've done is try to be very focused on this infrastructure problem itself. And so our customer is either a B2B2B company or B2B2C. We're not really focused, in other words, on the end consumer or even an end business and corporate. Now, the reality is anyone can use our APIs. We're a very open platform, but how we optimize what those endpoints do and for whom, it's really as an infrastructure provider. And that gives us great clarity in terms of the type of problems that we're solving and the customer that we have. I think the crypto and blockchain space, really customers have been addressed by all kinds of different companies. And companies have essentially served almost anybody, because we're coming out of an early adopter phase where the strategy was more like an AOL business model strategy, which is we'll kind of do everything. And you have to do that because the pie is still small. And we're now entering a stage of mainstream adoption. And that really is about specialization and really focus, I think. A very key element of what differentiates us is the way we have embraced regulation. Now, there's certainly a cost to embracing regulation. And I think almost anyone can imagine what that is, which is you might have to move slower. You might be able to have product sets that are maybe in some ways a little more narrow. But on the other hand, I think the benefits you get over time is having a much higher opportunity in terms of addressable market. And specifically, what I mean by that is we want to create mainstream adoption. We want to create societal-wide outcomes. I think it's very hard to achieve well, frankly, almost in any industry, as we see, but also very specifically in the financial industry without being regulated. Because the fact is, financial products can be very opaque. And you can think that you're creating financial innovation, but you're really creating financial instability. And that's been very obvious in the crypto and blockchain space over the last 2 or 3 months. By the way, it's true in the wider financial system. That's part of what the financial crisis showed us, is that opaque leverage is easy to creep into the system. That's definitely not what Paxos is about. We're just trying to create a real usage of this new technology to change how this industry works. I think that oftentimes you can just put a new name on something in the blockchain and crypto space, and then therefore maybe think that you're creating innovation. And really, it's just another product that would fail in the normal world, but people think it's something different because it has a new name and maybe a new delivery mechanism. And so we've been really deliberate about having regulation, because I think that if you're creating innovation, it might slow you down a little bit, but it's not going to fundamentally slow your business model down. But I do think that if your business model is about being unregulated financial services provider, that usually means that you're veering into offering products that potentially can be unstable. And you just then have less oversight. You probably have less controls, and you can have things like Terra, where $40 billion evaporated relatively overnight, or you can have products like what happened with Celsius and with Three Arrows, where you essentially had bank runs that got created because they weren't running themselves with the right reserves, a lot of leverage. And by the way, I think that there could be other companies that end up being proven out to have unstable business models. Of course, it looks very attractive because in financial services, there's a concept of adverse selection, which is that you can give people as much credit, or you can give someone as much leverage as they want. People always want more. But actually, what you need to do is put governors on your business to prevent that. We don't actually use leverage at all in ours, but this is the common kind of paradox of financial services. And so we've tried to basically make sure that by being focused on who our end user is, by being an infrastructure provider, and by making sure that we're focused on having regulation, that we can then offer a set of very important products that can be widely adopted. And I think that is a unique position that we have compared to others in the industry. And in some sense, this was an over-the-horizon strategy. We started the company when this was still an early adopter business, an early adopter industry. But I had a lot of belief that this was going to fundamentally re-platform the entire financial system. And those were investments that we made from the very beginning. And that's now paying off in a very, very significant way. And so I think some evidence of that is how we built a really counter-cyclical business model. It's really an all-weather business model. So we're actually doing better now that interest rates are rising. Our revenues are going up this year. They'll go up, something like 20 plus X. It's a pretty exciting time for us. And it's allowing us to be cash flow positive in this environment and be able to continue to invest in hiring people. So we're having this call today, and that's why we want to keep talking to you, is because I look at this as an opportunity for us to continue to differentiate ourselves from others in the industry, and frankly, even other people within the tech space. You're seeing a lot of retrenchment, but this concept of making sure that we understood where we were trying to go and build the business to be able to succeed in any environment, I think is a testament to, again, being focused on innovation. And so, our funding has been now over $540 million. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on the balance sheet. And that fortress balance sheet and that focus on not being involved in opaque leverage, being involved in innovation, being focused on building great products, building infrastructure, thinking for not just quarters, but thinking in years as our time horizons, is really starting to pay off now. And I think, what is that really ultimately driven by? It's by having a great product team. I think if you look at the legacy financial system, what's interesting about it is it's really about services, and services are about projects. And those are valuable, but they tend to not be very leverageable. And if you think about the project of shifting the financial system, it might be, and changing that infrastructure, it might be one of the hardest problems in the whole world. I certainly think that there's a lot of reasons why it's one of the most important problems in the world to solve. Being able to change the access for anybody in the world to be able to hold an asset, move an asset, be part of a system, be able to join without anybody else overseeing your entrance into it is huge. That's just a big fundamental shift. And we need to make sure that we have the best product people in the world that are helping us think through these very complex problems, this very difficult way of changing things on a first principles basis. And that's not to say that other types of problems and other types of businesses aren't interesting. I'm sure they certainly are. But I think that if we get it right, the types of outcomes that we can achieve here are enormous. Obviously certain infrastructure firms like say AWS or Stripe or others have had huge impacts. And I think that Paxos should have at least that large of an impact if we get what we're doing right. And this mission of what we're doing at Paxos, which is enable the movement of any asset at any time to anyone, anywhere in the world, is just a fundamentally transformative one in a way that we don't even necessarily understand. That's how far the financial system is from there right now. But if you look in the crypto ecosystem, you can get some sense of what it could be. The DeFi ecosystem, NFTs, all these exciting things are happening. While there's a lot of instability, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that there is real fundamental change that this is pointing to about how having a programmatic financial system can be enormously inclusive and a powerful change agent. And so here at Paxos, product is about owning these problems. It's about owning design and development, how we think about where we want to put our effort and our resources and our time. It's about making sure that we can work cross-functionally together as a team. Communication is so important, but it's trying to solve a problem that not just involve product and engineering, but also importantly, other areas too. This is partly what makes it complex, like compliance and legal, obviously operations, finance. This is multi-layered, multi-variable, and then of course, multi-geography. And that's exciting for Paxos. I think it's something like 60% of our customers are now outside the United States. Enormous number of uptake for our products in both Latin America and Asia, and which kind of makes sense, right? Where are people underbanked, unbanked? While there's 25% of adults in the US that are unbanked or underbanked, it's much higher than that outside of the US. And it shouldn't change what we're able to do here in the United States, because that's a really powerful first market to be in. But we've already shown how growing geographies can really help to achieve this mission. Again, enabling movement of any asset, anytime, to anybody, anywhere in the world. And so building a platform that's capable of handling that type of problem and being able to do it in a very simple way is something that can really create a powerful, positive outcome for the world. That's why I'm excited every day to be at Paxos. It's the people, it's what we're trying to accomplish. And that's why I know that getting the best possible product team is going to have a huge impact, not just on the trajectory of Paxos as a company, but on the trajectory of what scale of a problem we can solve. And I think ultimately, it's one that is absolutely enormous. So thanks all for joining today. I hope you really enjoy getting to learn more about Paxos. I know we're really excited to talk about our company. It's always fun to have a chance to talk to people who want to hear about what you're doing. So thanks for listening, and thanks for being a part of this.
Thanks so much, Charles. Great to hear from you as always. But now it's time to get to the main event with our product team. So with that, let me introduce you to a few members of our product team, starting with Zach Kortler. Zach, you want to jump on and say hello?
Yep. Thanks, Jonna. Hey, everyone. Zach Kortler, Principal Product Manager, work for our wallet product line, and have been at the company for 3 years, really working across all elements of our crypto and stablecoin business. Currently focused on our transfers and core ledger. And before Paxos, I was a product manager in advertising technology.
That's great. And Chuck, are you there?
Great. Yeah, thanks, Zach. I'm Chuck. I'm a product manager. I joined about a year ago, currently working on the settlement product line. Before Paxos, I was a PM at a real estate fintech company. And before that, another fintech company that was focused on being an exchange for private shares of startups.
Great. And Davis?
Hi, everyone. Davis Hart, Senior Product Manager. I joined Paxos about 7 months ago, and I work on the wallet product line along with Zach. I'm based in Boulder, Colorado. So for those of you who maybe aren't in the New York area, it's proof that the remote work is definitely a core part of our culture. And before Paxos, I worked at Google for 6 years in product management roles in a few different teams, including cloud and payments. And before that, had a period of time in the financial services industry.
Yeah. And Mona?
Hey everyone, I'm Mona. I'm a bit further away from Davis, where I'm based in London, UK. I joined Paxos about 4 months ago, at the end of February 2022. I started in the oil and gas industry, working for Schlumberger as a electromagnetic product manager. From there, I jumped to the technical industry, working for Amazon as an Alexa product manager. And now I am in Paxos, which is a fintech senior product manager here for PaxG. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, we're happy to have all of you here. And just for the audience members, we have the Q&A feature enabled. So please put your questions in there for the team. Before we get into your questions, we wanted to give you a little background on product management at Paxos. So Zach, I will let you take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonna. So yeah, I guess before we jump into the Q&A, one thing whenever I'm speaking to candidates, usually the first question I get is, so what do you guys do? And with that in mind, really for the next 10 minutes or so, wanted to cover 3 things. First, I'll introduce just our 4 product lines at a high level. Second, I'll go into just more detail on the different products that each of them is focused on. And then last, I'll just close by just re-emphasizing how they all tie back to this mission that Chad outlined of enabling any asset, moving any asset anytime in a trustworthy way. And so currently we've organized the product team into 4 groups we refer to internally as product lines. And those are wallet, tokenization, settlement, and onboarding and compliance. And one thing across all these groups, we're focused on building a single platform. And there's a ton of white space. All these product lines have existing products, existing customers, significant traction, as well as just a lot of room for people to just like jump in and have a major impact very quickly. And so, John, I could go to the next slide. So first, I'll talk about the wallet product line. And so the wallet product line, that's really focused on building out our API-first B2B2C crypto infrastructure product. And so what we're doing there is we're building out an API-based platform that combines core like crypto infrastructure capabilities like custody and like trading. And then we're targeting that to customers such as fintechs, brokerages, and banks. And if you're someone who you've used the PayPal app or the Venmo app, or you trade stocks with interactive brokers over the past couple of years, you've likely seen that these companies, they've all started to add crypto trading to their products. And those offerings and a number of others are powered by the Paxos platform beneath the scenes. So, as Chad mentioned, we've gone to market with a B2B2C, B2B2B offering. And really the reason that, we focused on that is that we see it as we're laying the foundation for the world's large financial institutions to bring their users into the crypto and Web3 ecosystem, but via products and brands that they've grown to know and trust over the past couple of decades. And one thing, we really only launched this API first part of our business 2 years ago. And so we've added a ton of significant customers since then, expanded internationally, and just in the past month have had major expansions of our product, both with crypto transfers and financial advisors. So we both see this product line going broader and deeper over the past year. If you want to go to the next slide. So our second product line is tokenization. And tokenization, it's focused on building out a regulated platform for issuing asset-backed tokens. And so we've started with USD stablecoins and with gold. And so And to date, we've issued over $20 billion of those assets onto public blockchains. And one reason that we've focused on tokenization as just a core part of our product strategy is that the majority of the world's assets, over 99.5% are not natively cryptographic. And so we really see this core ability to move sort of the world's assets onto blockchains as just like inherent to replumbing the financial system. And given that in many cases, these assets, they're representing assets in the real world, there's an incredibly high bar of just like the trust that consumers need to have in this. And so you can see like what goes wrong just with the recent Terra collapse of just people thought they had $1 and then overnight it was worth nothing. And that's had all these cascading ripple effects. Paxos, we're really focused on the opposite of that, of just building out these trusted tokens that we both, one thing we do differently is we don't just issue branded tokens, we have white label partnerships. And so we partnered with Binance, the largest crypto exchange in the world, to issue Binance Dollar or BUSD. We work very closely with the New York Department of Financial Services or NYDFS, who's established a regulatory framework to issue asset-backed tokens onto public blockchains. We're the only provider operating at scale under that or really any other regulatory framework. And we've also not just worked with our own customers, but done a lot of work to distribute the tokens that we issue throughout the crypto ecosystem, working with other leading crypto exchanges, DeFi protocols, market makers, and other players in this space. If you want to go to the next slide. So our third product line, settlement. So this is a multi-asset class tokenized settlement platform that's really targeted to financial institutions. And it started out by focusing on US equities and commodities. And again, similar to the tokenization product line, this is really focused on moving all of the sort of the world's like non-cryptographic assets onto blockchains. And settlement in particular, it's very core to just the Paxos mission of building a safer and more trusted financial system. It's often like as someone who came to Paxos from a non-financial services background, settlement is something that nobody really thinks about in their day-to-day until something goes wrong. And so as an example of that, with Robinhood and just like all the GameStop and meme stock trading issues from last year, at its core, that was a sort of like settlement and financial plumbing issue that just had cascading ripple effects through society. And with the platform that we're building, we're enabling the world's largest institutions to just, for the first time in decades, change the way that they settle their US equities trades, their over-the-counter commodities trades, other asset classes. And so one way we're doing that is we're in the process of getting a clearing agency registration from the SEC, where we'll be the first registered clearing agency in decades and really provide some needed competition and innovation into that market. And then beyond just these asset classes that we're focused on here, one thing that we believe is that over time, the crypto markets, as they grow more mature, become more mainstream, the crypto market structure is going to start to look more like traditional asset class market structures. And so the fact that we're focusing on solving traditional asset class settlement problems, that's not only going to have an impact for these asset classes, but it's also going to benefit the crypto parts of our business as well. And then our fourth product group is onboarding and compliance. And you can think of this product group as the connective layer that really brings together the product offerings that we bring to our customers. And so that's things like user onboarding, KYC and AML, our internal workflows that just like for our own teams to power our products. We're building that all in a highly sort of like platform centric way. And that enables us to create leverage across this business. And so one example of that is, we have an identity API. That's a key part of our strategy of we've achieved all of these regulatory licenses. We've been a registered trust in New York since 2015. We're in the process of getting a national trust charter from the OCC, as well as receiving a PSA license from Singapore. So like these are very hard licenses to get. Very few companies in the crypto space, if any, have them. And with this onboarding and compliance platform, we're enabling customers and their end users to benefit from this regulatory structure and these consumer protections, but to build products on top of this platform. And so you can basically have a product that's fully powered by Paxos. We're completely comfortable just being the back end to that, but doing it in a way that's just like highly platform centric and just creates a lot of scale for our business and for our customers over time. And then if you want to go to the last slide, we'll wrap up, go to panel Q&A. I'll just sort of quickly say in closing, so the key point, these 4 product lines, wallet, tokenization, settlement, and regulatory compliance, they're all contributing to building this single platform, all just like with traction, with a lot of room for growth, and ultimately contributing to our mission of enabling the movement of any asset, anytime, in a trustworthy way. So back to you, Jana.
Thank you, Zach. I'm going to make it so everybody can see all of you so we can get into the panel. I'm seeing a lot of questions already rolled in. So I hope none of them are, too tough. But Zach, I'm going to actually keep it on you because this one came up actually already. This is around just the product team structure and growth. Can you talk about how the product team is structured and kind of the plans for growing the team?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, we've got these 4 product lines. That's how we organize the team. So wallet, tokenization, settlement, regulatory and compliance. And we've got a number of open roles across, I think 7 open roles right now in 3 of those groups. And so I think John is going to send out the specific roles later. But basically we're using that structure to just like continue to scale the team, but in a way where everybody has sort of a very clear focus and alignment towards the longer term company mission and strategy.
Yeah. And Chuck, I'd love for you to come in and talk more about the day-to-day, like what's being worked on right now on the product team?
Yeah, so across the product team, there's a lot of different things that we're working on, from different banking integrations into the platform, the unified platform we've been talking about, and also integrations to different blockchains. For me specifically, on the settlements product line, as mentioned already, we're working to launch our US equities clearing agency. And so along with all the various of the features that we've been building there, we're now focused on a lot of client integrations so that we can speed up the rate at which some clients can onboard with us in the future.
Yeah, and actually this question came in too about kind of thinking day-to-day, Chuck, like what is the tech stack used for you day-to-day product management wise?
Yeah, so we can talk about product management and then also engineering and specifically, I guess it varies by the different product lines. From an engineering perspective, our engineers work mostly in Kotlin. We have distributed systems and microservices which communicate via Kafka and other kind of asynchronized messaging methodologies. Now, each team has started with a slightly different origin, but we are converging the platform to all be working together. From a product management perspective, that we use mostly Google Documents for our own tooling and video conferencing and project management.
Yeah, and Slack happy too, or Slack happy culture.
Yes, and yeah, Slack as well for communication.
And you mentioned engineering. So I'm curious how product partners with the Paxos engineering team.
Yeah, they're very integral to what I call like the product team as well. From very, very early on, I saw a question earlier about product discovery. The engineers are, integral to that product discovery process. Really hearing from our clients, we work in a B2B to C or B2B to B type environment. And so, the clients are these businesses and learning from them to understand their problems and the problems that they're trying to solve for their end users is kind of core part of that discovery. That's, obviously fairly early on in the product development lifecycle. As you continue from there, we collaborate a lot with engineering and the engineering leads to design the solutions that we're expecting that will satisfy not only the particular product problems that we've learned from our customers, but also building towards this unified product vision as well. And after solutioning, you can imagine from a product execution perspective, we work in an agile way, 2-week sprints. And so, from retros, sprint planning, and other typical agile ceremonies, there's obviously a lot of direct engineering collaboration there.
Yeah. Would you say, like, out of all of the PM jobs you've had, is it more collaborative with engineering than other roles that you've been in?
I can't speak for everyone else, but I'm sure it's definitely very, very collaborative. We work, very, very closely. And yeah, depending on the type of product that you're working on, some of them are much more user facing or like UI driven versus more technical, like API driven systems deployments. That will determine kind of the level of collaboration. But definitely one thing that I think is really, really strong here at Paxos is because we're working towards this unified product platform, then there's a lot of collaboration amongst different teams because at the end of the day, we're all kind of contributing to the overall layer.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. And Mona, there's a few that I'm going to direct towards you because you are the newest on the panel to Paxos, right? February, and you were at Amazon previously. So I guess two-part question. One, what made you, choose to transition to Paxos? What made you choose Paxos? And then two, did you have prior blockchain, crypto, Web3 expertise?
So I'll start with the second question. The answer is no. I actually didn't had any blockchain, crypto, Web3 expertise coming into this role. I don't think it's necessary for Paxos. There is a really good onboarding program, and I'm already 4 months into the company, and I'm already learning a lot about what I need to do my role. And it's a very collaborative and helpful team here that supports in the process. It's always been useful whenever you have people from different backgrounds and introduce diversity to the team. You ensure that you guarantee a lot of people thinking outside the box and that you actually get something that's interesting and disruptive. And that brings me back to the first question, which is the reason why I went into Paxos was it goes back to disruption. So I've been traditionally in companies that have been very disruptive or innovative in their fields. And the financial industry was one that is ripe for innovation. Unfortunately, a lot of the companies that I've been looking into I didn't feel were really going down the right path. Their mission was a little bit off. They were trying either too hard or too conservative. And Paxos was the first company that I've seen whose mission statement just spoke to me as this sounds like something is being done right here. The focus on trustworthiness, the making sure that they're being careful to bridge the old and the new was interesting. So that's what's captured my attention. The next step was when you're looking into a startup, the first thing you do is look at the leaders. You want to make sure that the captain of the ship is steering it in the right direction. And the more I read, the better I felt about it. And it was kind of like going from there.
Well, we're happy you're here. And Zach, you've been here for about 3 years or so, and I feel like a lot's happened, a lot of growth has happened. Could you share just a little bit more about how your career has grown while being a PM at Paxos?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and definitely, Paxos 3 years ago, the crypto industry 3 years ago, very, very different than the company today. And so one thing that I generally, and when I talk to other people about PM career development, I think that for product in many cases, like the biggest sort of constraint to your personal growth is just like the opportunities that you get to work on. So ultimately it's like the opportunities you work on, that's just a big contributor to just like the success you can have, how much you can learn. And I really think in terms of just like high impact, complex problems to solve and like sort of opportunities to focus on, Paxos is just an incredible combination of, it's a very, ambitious mission that, has decades of runway with significant traction already. So you're coming in and you can hit the ground running there. And then just the strength of the team. It's an incredibly smart, collaborative team just across product, engineering, growth, and all of our different regulatory functions. And I think when you put together that combination of just mission, traction, and people, there's just the amount you can grow as a PM is really limitless.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I'm actually going to ask you one other one that came up on here, just around advice that you would have. You joined 3 years ago. Obviously, the evaluation was a little different 3 years ago. What advice do you have for people that are interested in joining a startup? Just how do you evaluate if it's a legit startup? If it's a good, how did you evaluate Paxos?
Yeah, so there were, a couple different things. One was just I definitely didn't know enough to have like a strong view on the strategy, but like high level, the fact that the company was focused on regulated infrastructure for blockchain and financial services, was like broadly that made sense. And so I think it's always good to just like sort of rationalize that, like, does the top level narrative, like if that doesn't check out, that can be a flag. And so for Paxos, it definitely did for me. A second one is just to think about the traction of the existing company's products. And so when I joined, Paxos had its first stable coin, then Pax, now USDP, in market for about a year. It was doing really well. And I think just like the fact that they had demonstrated that they could launch and scale like a regulated blockchain product was really appealing. And then third is I just always focus on the people. And ultimately at a startup, like what the company's focused on, what you're doing, it can change pretty dramatically every 6 months, if not definitely every year. But like the people are going to stay the same. And so I think just like feeling really confident that like you're going to be working with a great team is another key thing to look for.
Yeah, great advice. And then Davis, I'm going to kick it to you, and you're in your Paxos hoodie, which looks amazing. Yeah, the Paxos colors. So you joined us from Google, I believe November, right? November 2021. So what made you choose Paxos? And next question being, what have you been able to accomplish, and what are some of the things you've been able to do since November?
Sure. So when I was at Google last summer and I was starting to look around for a number of different reasons, I wanted to move from a really big organization to a much smaller organization, probably for a lot of the reasons that if you're on this call, you're thinking about, if you're at a larger company, about being able to move faster, more focus, maybe less bureaucracy, less coordination headwind, these kinds of things. Google was at a point where I had a great experience and I was looking for something different. And so at that time, I knew that I wanted to go to something that had what I called an unbounded opportunity set, meaning like it's just open white space all over the place. And frankly, I think there's only a few areas in the world in terms of industries that offer this. And a few of those are very more technical than I am. And given my background in finance, I was pretty interested in blockchain and crypto. And so at the time, I was introduced to Paxos, and the things that really jumped out at me that ultimately led me to choose Paxos, actually, Zach sort of touched on some of them. One was just in the interviews, meeting the team. I was really impressed with the quality of the talent that we have and sort of the consistency of the culture, right? It's one thing to have people with great backgrounds and, that sort of thing, but it's another thing to see sort of the values alignment. And Paxos, we talk a lot about our core values, and I saw that through and through with the team. And I also believed in sort of the strategy of the regulatory first approach, having worked at Google with a number of very large financial institutions and seeing how hard it is for them to innovate, given sort of their regulatory oversight and just the risk that they take on for doing these kinds of things, particularly in crypto. And Paxos is essentially coming with a solution that's not just technical blockchain, but also regulatory. And that just made a ton of sense to me, just from the background that I was coming from. So that's kind of in a nutshell why I chose to join. Since I've joined, my focus has actually been a little bit further ahead on the roadmap. I focus on yield, staking, borrowing, and payments. And so these are all things that we have a little bit further out on the roadmap. And when I joined, mostly white space opportunity for us. And so since I joined, I've really dug in deep on doing a bunch of research internally and externally, getting out into the industry, and sort of leveraging our deep connections in the crypto industry. You heard Chad, he's been around Bitcoin since like 2010. So you can imagine sort of the depth of connections we have. And through that, I built out sort of our roadmap around all these initiatives, as well as sort of built out our go-to-market strategy around payments. If you followed us, you know that we work a bit with MasterCard. And so that's like an example of one of our counterparties in the payment space that we're now going after.
Yeah. Do you have advice? There's still more questions coming in here about not having the blockchain or the crypto work experience. Like what did you do? What advice could you give people that want to break into the space? Because you just did.
Yeah. So a couple of things here. I did have a little bit of a financial services background, which was helpful, but I know we have people who join from outside financial services, and that's totally fine. I think a couple of things are important. One is just to come with an open mind and a desire to learn, and to sort of the sort of tenacity to gather whatever resources you can to sort of teach yourself. And that is certainly people within the company. Like, I spent a lot of time with Chuck, just like discussing cryptocurrency valuation, and that actually helped me learn about how to think about the ecosystem. We also have a multi-week sort of onboarding process where, and this is kind of hard for like a type A product manager, where people are saying, no, like you're not working on real stuff for a few weeks, like you're supposed to be learning. And that's hard because you feel like everyone's holding you back in a way. But at the same time, that gave me time to, I have under my desk here, print out, a bunch of white papers for all the different layer ones out there, and just read them and start to learn about how it all worked. And I realize now like how important that amount of time that time was. And so we give people the space and the resources and the support to learn about the industry, learn about the technology, whatever aspect of it interests you, I think will give you the background that you need to function in the company. And so it really is, I think, a pretty straightforward process. Again, as long as you come in with sort of that desire and that urge to learn, and the ability to just find resources and go after it.
Yeah. And then I actually have a fun question, because I know that you've been to a few events now with Paxos since you joined. You were at Bitcoin, you went to NFT and NYC recently. You went to Consensus. Yeah. What was your favorite one?
So I've been to four. The fourth one is ETH Denver, which is a free Ethereum conference, and you get what you pay for. I'll just leave it at that. And that was in February, but that was a blast in and of itself. Actually, Bitcoin Miami was sort of the tops for me, because that was the first time I really got to meet a lot of the team in person. We sponsored Bitcoin Miami, so we had a booth there, and we had a contingent from our executive team. Zach was there from the product team. We had a number of folks from our growth team. So I think all in all, and Jonah was there. Like, I think all in all, we had about 15 people there. And so for me, it was great just to see the excitement in the industry, even in March, like the prices were coming off, and still a lot of excitement in the industry, excitement and interest about Paxos being able to sit face to face with our customers and partners was great. But really above all of that was just getting to spend time with the team, and, both in formal and informal settings. It was just really awesome. And I realized that I really did make a great choice. And again, sort of the consistency of the quality and the culture that we have really does run through and through.
Yeah, that's great. And Zach, there's a lot coming in about hiring. So I know you as a hiring manager, I want to ask you a couple of these. What do you look for? I mean, you mentioned we have a few product manager roles currently open. We're going to be continuing to grow the product team. But what are some of the core things that you look for when you interview product managers?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing before I answer that, just to reemphasize a point that both Mona and Davis mentioned. So one thing, we're not actively looking in most cases for people with crypto and Web3 experience. And so just want to emphasize, if you haven't worked in crypto, if you haven't worked in Web3, if you haven't worked in financial services, like I came from advertising technology, for example, like that shouldn't be an impediment. But ultimately, what we're focused on is finding very strong, like generalist product managers that can span everything from just like strategy through to execution. You have a lot of like sort of range in terms of the types of work that you can do as a PM. And so we want people that are just like comfortable with that breadth of experience. Obviously, like what that means is different depending on the level. And then, more than that, we're just focused on people that index really highly on just like, classic PM skill sets, like complex problem solving, leadership, and then in terms of specific experience, just experience working with like B2B customers, as well as just like working on like, technical problems with engineers is really helpful as well. But ultimately, it's just people that are bringing that really strong, like generalist PM background and want to just like leverage that in their next role at Paxos.
Okay, great. And Mona, since you were the one on the panel that I'm going to pick on you, that you recently interviewed, I should say recent. But what do you remember about our interview process? Can you share with the group, what that process looks like in your experience?
It was an interesting process. So I did multiple rounds, and the idea here is I got to meet a lot of the team members that I'll be working with, not just within product, but also within the growth team, BD, sales, and engineering, which gave me a good grasp on the company and the type of people that I'll be working with. And that was a huge plus for me, understanding that this would be something a company that I would like to be part of. I think at its core, the company is very upfront about what it's looking for and the type of people and culture that it has built. And it's more of finding out if you're a good fit and if you want to be part of that community. So it was an interesting session. I did a lot of prep for it, which was all useful in the end. So, but I do remember that I benefited as much from the interviews than I think the company did as well, because it was really a learning process. One thing that was unique was the fact that I got to meet Chad during the interview process, which it was just a casual conversation to be able to ask him questions and understand if this is really the company that I would want it to work for. And that was a nice touch.
I would just quickly tack on because I interviewed not too far, behind Mona. Two things. One was I was I noticed the degree of honesty and transparency I had with all the interviewers in terms of my questions and just being very honest about where the company is and the challenges and all that sort of stuff. That felt very good. And to sort of second what Mona was saying, being able to meet a number of people that I'm currently working with, which was not my experience at Google, where you interview with people that you likely will never work with. Interviewing with people that you're going to work with, including Chad, who's a pretty accessible guy, even as the CEO of the company, was a really great experience.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I would echo the same thing. Well, Chuck, I want to ask you a little bit more about culture. People are asking, like, what is it like to work on the team? What's a kind of the vibe, right? You mentioned core values, but even expanding a little bit more on the Paxos product culture, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, certainly. It's definitely very collaborative. I think by very nature of building a platform, you have to rely on expertise and learning and kind of getting insight from other product managers on the team. And so there's very, very many examples of different product managers coming together to work on the same strategy or how they can expand something that one of them has worked on to cover more than one basis. And in general, just overall at a high level at Paxos in terms of product, definitely focus on written communication and making sure that we're very clear and aligned on whether it be strategy or decision making. As a product manager, you kind of like quarterbacking some of these key decisions and driving the roadmap forward. And so being able to be like collaborative across the stakeholders outside of product as well as inside product is kind of like a key part of the role. And so therefore, the way that impacts culture is you're in a position to like get to know people from different business lines and also different functions is the word I was looking for. So like business development, of course, engineering that comes naturally with the job, but also legal, regulatory, and compliance. And as Davis was saying, even the CEO. And so you wrap all that together, and you've got like a very collaborative, kind of like team-based culture.
Yeah, and Chuck, I thought this was a good question here about the level of influence you're able to have, in your role, right? What's the level of autonomy and influence that you can have versus like the director of product management, let's say? Do you feel that you get that?
Yeah, I saw that question come in as well. And I think, the answer is that we're very flat. We have, there's different titles and so on, but realistically, as a PM in a particular area, where you're an expert or you have particular insight to bring to the table, everyone's voices are heard. We have, one of our core values is really searching for the truth, and speaking up and making sure that the information that you have available is known by everyone, so that the team can make the best decision. So at the end of the day, we're all about trying to make the best decision for the company as a whole, and which means that depending on, regardless of where you are, you're really encouraged to bring what you have to the table. And so I would say, yes, certainly, anybody at any level can be influential as much as you put yourself forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Zach, I want to get to this one actually from Kevin around what is the process of getting any product improvements or requirements approved? We of course are regulation first, right? Do most changes go through regulatory bodies? How how does that work for us?
Yeah, so there's no sort of like one size fits all answer to how different products and features are shipped. But one thing is whenever a general sort of principle that I use here is the larger and more complex that a product or feature is, the more sort of like stakeholders and especially on the regulatory side, you're going to need to work with. And so one thing, like as a PM, when you're doing like discovery for large like initiatives or new products, is you're not just thinking about sort of like the customer need and the technical capabilities, but you're also spending a lot of time working really closely with your legal and your compliance stakeholders to just understand, you know, what is like the regulatory structure that like is needed to offer this product, like what new funding flows are we introducing, and just being really thoughtful about how can we not just extend our technology platform, but also leverage and extend our regulatory stack to bring, you know, different, highly like differentiated products to market.
Yeah, that's a great background. I was actually wondering the answer to that too. So thank you. And then a few questions in here about our customers. So Zach, I'm going to start with you. How do you work with our customers? Like as a PM, are you at every meeting? Do you have kind of minimal visibility interaction with them, and growth does all of that? What's that like?
Yeah, so that definitely, like the nature of that has changed a lot over the past 3 years. I think when I joined Paxos, we didn't really have a customer success team. And so then, you know, as PM at like an earlier stage company, you just sort of wear whatever hats are needed. But increasingly, you know, the interaction model, it looks a lot like you'd see at other B2B software infrastructure companies, where we've got a very large and growing growth team comprising of BD and customer success, and they own the customer relationships. And then we're working with them both to sort of like help you know, advance like our existing partnerships with large customers, as well as any time, you know, we're working on like new products or features. Like I think what Davis was mentioning Yield earlier is he's leveraging the growth team to go out to a bunch of customers and really just like understand sort of like what's the underlying need there, and make sure that we're prioritizing like the right things when we're bringing new products to market.
Yeah. And why would you say customers choose us? What, like, you know, there's a few different options out there, right? People trying to do this and that. Why do customers go with Paxos?
Yeah, totally. So I guess one thing that I think is sort of like, even before answering that, just for any like B2B software business, especially at the earlier stage, is like, why do anything? And I think a lot of times for any business, you're competing against inaction. And that's one thing that talking to the leaders of our business development team, that they've said that is different about working at Paxos and in the crypto market compared to other you know, businesses they've worked at, is the amount of just like demand and conviction that our customers have and prospects have about, you know, the importance of crypto and blockchain to their long-term business. Is there's so much like conviction that like they've already decided that they're going to enter this space. And then sort of the next thing is like they're thinking about approach. And really they've all, in terms of entering the market, they've found that partnering with a leading provider is going to be just like a much more sort of efficient and safer way to enter the market than just like other options out there. Like, why not just like build everything yourself? It's like, well, you could, but that would take you 2 or 3 years. And like, there's really great providers in the space. So like, probably not the best use of your resources. And so then once they've made those two decisions, it's like, well, why Paxos and not other spaces? And it really comes down to a couple of the things that Chad had mentioned earlier. One is just our focus on infrastructure and the fact that we're truly a B2B2C and B2B2B company that is just like, you know, heavily investing and accelerating our investment in the infrastructure part of the market. And that's all we do. And there are other companies that's a part of their business, but that's not their main focus. And I think that level of commitment really means a lot to our customers and prospects. The second is just our focus on regulation. And that, especially for like the larger companies in the space that are moving into crypto, there's a lot of risk and uncertainty. And so just partnering with a company that has just achieved very high levels of just like regulatory oversight in a pretty early market is really valuable. And then third is just our traction with existing customers. You know, at this point, partnerships with companies like PayPal, Interactive Brokers, Nubank, Mercado Libre. It's not just that we've won these partnerships, that we've launched and we've been operating them at scale for, you know, a couple of years. And that for a market that's really only like, you know, 2-3 years old, when you look at the crypto infrastructure space, just the fact that we can demonstrate that we know how to like make these scaled crypto products successful in the B2B2C and B2B model is not really something that many other providers in this space can say. And so when you put those things together of the infrastructure focus, the regulation and the customer traction, I think that gives customers a lot of confidence to enter the crypto market with Paxos.
And I'm going to ask you this first, but I'm going to ask all of you, so be ready. What has been your most memorable moment at Paxos so far?
Yeah, so the one for me was building out our crypto brokerage platform when we launched our first like major B2B2C partnership with PayPal. I think that was, anytime I was at PM, that was really like a 0 to 1 moment for Paxos. And so there's just like, that was really just like exciting and a very complex problem to work on. And I think the thing that sticks with me the most was just like the team we had working on it across like BD, customer success, product engineering. Like, keep in mind, this was like very early in the pandemic. And so in many cases, it was like this was like the one thing we had to do that's like wasn't, being wherever we were in society, was just like working with our team. And it was just, there was so much just like collaboration and just like commitment to like, creative problem solving. And I think just the fact that, that went as well as it did is just something I'll remember for a really long time.
Yeah, love that. Mona, what about you?
I was hoping it would come to me last, Jonah. Well, so I've been here 4 months, so probably my memorable moment is gonna be very fastly superseded in the future. But I think in my case, it was more along the lines of when after I joined and I started onboarding, I started meeting up with a lot of clients to learn more about the products I'm going to be owning. And it was just, it doesn't really strike as something impressive in the long run, but it was memorable for me because I found myself getting involved in the product immediately and finding myself being in a place where I could actually support and provide as soon as possible. And I was impressed by how fast I was able to pick a lot of things up and just how in depth we were. And there was a lot of things that was very interesting to learn about and to know more. Very exciting to find out where we were going and to be part of that journey.
Yeah, that's great. Davis, what about you?
Well, I kind of already shared mine, which is actually Bitcoin Miami. And I think that the thing to add here is I sort of personally believe that the team and the people that you work with is actually more important than the project. So I prioritize that. It's like, I think back in school, I'm sure we all have stories like this, where there's like that class in the subject that you love, but with that professor that just made it horrible. And then the inverse, like that class that you didn't think you were going to enjoy, but because of the professor, it was awesome, right? And I think it's the same way. And it happens to be that Paxos has a very interesting problem space and product, but also a great team. And so that's why I point to that experience of just getting to spend a lot of time with our team face-to-face, professionally, and sort of just informally in the off hours at all the various events around the conference. Really, sticks out in my mind so far.
Well, I'm honored that I was a part of that. So
yeah, we'll save our stories.
Yeah. All right, Chuck, top that.
Well, yeah, well, mine actually has a similar reason in terms of like meeting up with people in real life and collaborating, and it'd have to be the one of the first product offsites. So the team meets in person every, at least every 2 quarters, and this was coming out of the pandemic. We are a remote first company, but this is an opportunity for us to all meet in person. First time meeting some of the other team members that you'd only seen over screens. And we really got into it, discussing company strategy, learning about each other's business lines, and getting to know people in person, just personally as well. And then, as Davis was saying, that's your opportunity to really meet the team and see how brilliant people are and how people think and the debates that we're having. And so that's definitely in the books for me so far as most memorable moments.
That's great. Thank you for sharing, everybody. I'm going to close with this question because it's been asked a few different ways throughout the session. Davis, I'm going to go to you. Last question. Why is Paxos a good bet right now? We see the market, right? We see the crypto winner, so to speak. Why is Paxos a good bet?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so I think as we see sort of the hype from the last cycle die away, I think that the fundamentals of blockchain are very strong. And I think we're in the early innings of this. Like if you think about yeah, sure, Bitcoin's been around 13 years, but the applications on Ethereum, for example, have only been around for 3 years, right? Like, so we're very early in a lot of this stuff. And so I think there's a lot of open room to develop here. I think so I think there's a great opportunity set. I think why Paxos is a good bet right now within that space is if you think about these cycles in this industry, it goes back to some stuff Chad was saying, like, what do you need to do to survive and really prosper with these cycles? And I think of it two ways, right? One is you need to survive, right? You need to survive the downturns. And then you need to sort of maximize your options, right? I think about it as like, we're kind of, and this company sort of operates a little bit like a venture capital fund in a sense. And so if you think about it on the one side, in terms of survival, right, we have these protective moats. We have the regulatory alignment. We're very well capitalized. We have a very patient set of investors that aren't asking us to like make these crazy moonshot swing for the fences, bet the whole company kinds of initiatives. And then at the same time, we have three distinct sort of businesses that we're investing in, and any one of those can hit and can really create a lot of value for us in the next upswing, right? And that's the wallet stuff that we're doing as crypto as a service for a bunch of financial services companies. That's the tokenization and stablecoin and the interest that we can earn on reserves. And then all the things that we're doing in settlement that, if we become the next, clearing agency for US equities, you can imagine the size of that opportunity. And so if any one of those hit on the next upswing, like that's multiples for us. So that's the way I think about it.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for joining. I know we went a couple minutes over, but please connect with this group. This is an engaging group. I hope you felt that too. And follow us. We're on Twitter and LinkedIn and TikTok. And then finally, please go on our career site, paxos.com/careers. I'll put it here in the chat. Please check out our open roles. There's a lot to review and apply for. So thanks again, and we hope to see you all soon.